awoke early the next day and could not remember his dreams. The next morning, Johnny grabbed a light breakfast, checked his weapons, secured his pack, and headed out. The morning was clear with blue skies as he walked through the English gardens towards the rear Vatican walls and the road of sorrow beyond. The road itself was nothing more than a B road. Later it turned into little more than a dirt road, but led through lush Italian countryside before meeting with the Tyrrhenian Sea at Ostia Antica. Hundreds of Swiss guards and priests had died to secure this vital lifeline to the ocean. Johnny had not been there that day, but he had heard the stories. Hordes of demons had come racing from the west, the setting sun at their backs as they ploughed into the chanting priests. Crosses had burst into flames, holy water had burned like acid, and the air stank like sulphur as the Swiss guard poured round after round of the blessed silver into the writhing horde. At the heart of this chaos, 7 brave cardinals had carried the sacred bones of Saint Augustine, burying them in the earth, scattering the blessed bones along the path, seeding it forever with the power of God. For 29 miles they prayed and died by the hundreds, until at last they reached the ancient port city, setting up a small camp. Over time, the camp became a small fishing village with a church and a garrison of its own, and then a small town as refugees were sent from Vatican City along the now blessed road to help rebuild and fish with surrounding waters. Johnny was suddenly interrupted from his musings by the sight of 2 figures who stood waiting for him in the shadows of the Vatican walls. As he drew closer, he recognized his old friend and mentor, Father Matthew. Standing by his side, all decked out in glowing white, was the Archangel Raphael. Cursing under his breath, Johnny gave a small wave and hurried across to where the 2 figures stood. "Johnny," Father Matthew said, smiling and sticking out his hand. Johnny shook hands with his old friend, happy to note the old man's grip was still like iron. "Johnny," the angel said with an incline of his head, a small smile playing across his perfectly formed lips. "Are you ready for adventure?" "Sure," Johnny smiled back. "Fucking peachy keen." Father Matthew chuckled, but the angel took pause, his blue eyes inscrutable. "I have something for you," the angel said, holding out his hand. "Give me your sword." For a moment, Johnny just looked at the angel before slowly drawing his sword and reluctantly handing it over. Raphael took the sword, balancing it in his hand as if it weighed nothing. Then, with a grimace, he reached over his shoulder and plucked a single pure white feather from his wings. Slowly, almost reverently, he drew the feather down the blade. When he reached the handle, the steel split, enveloping the feather within before flowing back together, leaving the sword whole and intact. "What did you do?" Johnny asked, his eyes never leaving the blade. "I made it stronger, and its wielder along with it. There is nothing under heaven or in hell that sword cannot now kill. I have given you a great power, Johnny. Use it wisely." Johnny said nothing, but took the sword back in awe, his eyes never leaving the blade. The sword felt different now, more suited to his hand. He swore he could almost feel the power buried within the now flawless steel. Thumbing the blade along his hand, travelling up his arm, making him feel like he could hack down trees or fell a small building with a single strike. The angel smiled knowingly before coughing politely, drawing Johnny's attention from the humming blade. better you put that away for now. You will have many opportunities for its use on the road ahead." Johnny did as he was bid, reluctantly sheathing the sword across his back. "So," Father Matthew said, coming forward, "I guess this is goodbye for now. Stick to the road, and remember your training." With a small smile, he said, "Do you remember what I used to tell you when you were a boy in training, Johnny?" Johnny smiled and placed a warm hand on the old man's shoulder. "Believe in God," he said. "Keep your guns loaded and your steel sharp." The old man laughed. "That's the way, Johnny. God looks after his own." "And you?" Johnny said, turning towards the waiting angel. "Any parting words of advice?" For a moment, the angel seemed to ponder. "Kill them all, Johnny," the angel finally said. "Kill them all." Johnny's first day on the road was of little consequence. He left Vatican City through the old Vatican Museum entrance and entered the Via Angelo Emo district. Like everywhere else in and around the Vatican, the district was nothing more than a burnt-out ruin. Long gone were the apartment buildings, hotels and grocery stores that pandered to the once thriving community and tourist trade. Now all that was left was the road of sorrow, cutting through the district, winding through the blackened rubble and old, mouldering bones, some of which were human, and others foul and misshapen. Johnny tried not to look too closely at these as he passed out of the ruined district, out into the greenery of the Italian countryside, pushing himself hard, the sweat running down his body, determined to make the Santa Vergine monastery before nightfall. As he walked, ignoring the gnawing hunger in his guts, he thought of the monastery and all he knew about it. In truth, there was not much to tell. The place had once been a small farm that ran along the side of the SR-296, which is now known as the Road of Sorrow. It was right next to the small town of Dragona. The place had been blessed like so many other buildings close to the road and converted into a monastery of sorts of its own holy brothers, usually of the Franciscan order. There were some few places like this one along the Road of Sorrow, monasteries and small churches that had been converted from common buildings. Even a public toilet had been converted and blessed and now served as a small church. Johnny had stayed the night there once. The place had been small, uncomfortable, and still smelled vaguely of urine. He reached the monastery of Santa Vergine just as the shadows were growing long in the west. He was tired, hot, hungry and dishevelled as he staggered into the farmyard. The chickens squawked as he passed, heading towards the large barn and a few outbuildings that now served as a monastery. Leaning heavily against the door, he pulled out his water bottle and took a long drink, pouring the rest of the cold water over his head, wiping at his eyes and running his fingers through his tangled hair before rapping noisily on the wooden door. A few moments later, a small hole appeared in the door, and a pair of wary eyes studied Johnny, taking in his large frame and grimy look. That's when they finally noticed a small arsenal he carried strapped to his person. The eyes widened, and the hole in the door was quickly slammed shut. Frightened murmurs and whispering voices could be heard quite clearly from behind. Johnny was just raising his fist to knock again when the hole in the door reappeared, and Johnny stared down the rusty barrel of what was surely the world's oldest shotgun. "What do you want here?" a quavering voice asked from behind the door. "What are you doing here?" "Take it easy," Johnny said, slowly raising his hands. "I've come from the Vatican. I'm on a mission from His Holiness. We've lost contact with Ostia Antica. I've been sent to see what the hell is going on." For a moment, There was further murmuring. Then the barrel of the gun was withdrawn and the large wooden door pushed open. Johnny took a couple of steps back, his hands still raised, trying to look as harmless as possible. Behind the door was a congregation of men, seemingly of all ages, all tonsured and dressed in the brown robes of the order. All except one. An old looking soldier. Maybe the oldest soldier Johnny had ever seen. He was dressed in camouflage, his white, wispy hair peeking out from under his cap. His liver-spotted hands held the rusty-looking shotgun, a shotgun which now pointed directly at Johnny's chest. "Hey, I come in peace," Johnny said, looking at the soldier square in the eye. "How about you? Lower the gun, old-timer, so we can just talk." We can talk like this just fine," the old man replied in a wavering voice. "Now, how about you? Show us some proof you're from the Vatican before I put a hole in your belly." "Where the hell do you think I came from?" Johnny replied. "Do you think I'm here on a fucking holiday, taking a walk through the beautiful Italian countryside?" The old man came forward and thrust both barrels into Johnny's stomach and pulled back the hammers. "If I don't hear you talking sense, I will open you up right where you stand." "Okay, proof," Johnny frowned. "What kind of proof?" At this, the old man looked somewhat perplexed. I don't know what kind of proof." Suddenly his face lit up. Travelling papers, perhaps a letter from His Holiness with his holy seal upon it." Johnny was starting to get a little worried. He was no merchant who needed papers to travel. He had no documentation or any kind of proof of his mission. The old man was starting to get agitated, his hands beginning to shake, his breath coming faster, and Johnny realized that for all his bluster, this old man was scared. And scared men were dangerous. Whispering a prayer, Johnny shot out a hand, pushing the barrel of the gun to one side as he quickly stepped in the opposite direction. The old man let out a squawk of surprise and fired both barrels, discharging harmlessly into the door jamb. Swiftly, Johnny ripped the now empty gun from his hand, threw it aside before upholstering his sidearm and firing it twice into the air. The surrounding monks all let out a cry of surprise and cowered down into themselves, but the old-timer just stood there, his stubbly chin thrust aggressively forwards, his hands balled into tight fists by his sides. "You peckerwood son of a bitch," he growled at Johnny. "Even 5 years ago you'd be picking your fucking guts up off the floor." "I don't doubt it," Johnny said, reholstering his gun. "Look, I don't have any proof that I am from the Vatican. My name is Johnny Masterson. Like I said, I've been sent by His Holiness to see what the hell is going on at Ostia Antica." "Masterson," the old man said. The name sounds familiar. I guess you don't mean us any harm or we'd all be dead by now." "No," Johnny replied. "All I want is a bed for the night and a warm meal." "That's not up to me, that's up to Brother Luke, he's in charge here," the old man said, scooping up his empty shotgun and gesturing towards the cowering monks. Johnny followed his gaze as a tall, dark man, perhaps in his late 40s, maybe a little older, extradited himself from the pack. "I am Brother Luke," he said warily. "You are welcome to whatever we have, please, Timothy," he said to the old soldier. "Please, close and bar the windows and doors. Nighttime is coming and we need to be tucked up safe and sound." "Yes, brother," Timothy said. "Perhaps she won't come tonight." Brother Luke shot the old man a warning look before gently taking Johnny by the arm. "Please come with me, Mr. Masterson. The evening meal will be served soon. There is a wash area in the back of the building. You can wash away the road dust and rest." Johnny took the time to look around as he was led to the rear of the building. The monastery was no more than a converted barn, the entire bottom floor one big open space with a small shrine taking up the rear wall. In one corner there was a kitchen area with an old wood burner stove and some few shelves stocked with pots, pans and various dried commodities. The rest of the floor consisted of a large communal eating area, various scattered books, a few ratty-looking armchairs and a couple of threadbare rugs covering the hardwood floor. A single ladder led up to the old hayloft, which had been converted into the brothers' communal sleeping area. The whole scene was one of organised chaos and camaraderie, a brotherhood completely at ease with one another, and yet Johnny sensed a sublime fear running underneath. It was there in the strange smiles and the way the brothers' eyes constantly flickered to the overhead skylight and rough-cut windows, as if they lived in fear of the coming dark. Later, after the evening meal, as the brothers busied themselves clearing the table and preparing for the night, Johnny gently took Brother Luke to one side. "Tell me," he said quietly, "what ails this place, brother?" The other man smiled sadly. "What ails the world, my son?" Johnny waved that away. "What is it you're so afraid of? And what did that ornery old son of a bitch mean when he said, 'Perhaps she won't come tonight'? Who is she?" "A penance, perhaps," the tall monk shuddered. "Or a test. Maybe even a punishment for our impure thoughts. God knows," he said, gripping desperately at the wooden crucifix around his neck. "I have had so many since she first showed herself to us. God, the whiteness of her skin, and the things she says, such loathsome promises. Already we have lost 2 of our brothers to this harlot of Satan." "You've lost 2 of your brothers?" "Yes, Brother Glenn and Brother Thomas, both lured from the safety of the road by her wanton flesh." "When did all this start?" 3 nights ago. I was awoken by the sound of a woman's voice. It was like velvet, a whisper, drawing me through the darkness, like a fishhook in my brain, drawing me to her. Quickly I hurried down the ladder, careful not to wake my sleeping brothers, and stepped through the already open door and into the night. That's when I saw Brother Glenn, or the back of him anyway, and the woman waiting for him just off to the side of the road. She was completely naked, her white flesh glowing in the moonlight, and her hair was as black as the surrounding night, where it just cascaded over her shoulder. She saw me. She grinned. And that's where I started to scream. Her mouth was filled with fangs, and her eyes were silver in the moonlight, while she glared at me. I flinched away from that smile and screamed my brother's name, but it was already too late. He had stepped from the blessed road into her waiting embrace. I watched her. She scooped him into her arms as if he was nothing else than a child. She turned and ran with him into the forest. We heard screams. Such terrible screams. Brother Thomas implored us to go after the creature, that God would protect us. But we were weak in faith and afraid. Naming us for the cowards we were, he grabbed up his crucifix and headed out towards the screams. And soon, his voice joined that of poor Brother Glenn. They both screamed long and loud, imploring us to help them, to end their pain, but we could not help them. Eventually, the screaming stopped, and we locked ourselves away inside the safety of the monastery. The second night, old Timothy and I kept a watch. Just after sunset, she appeared again. She saw us watching her from a nearby window and began to display herself. She paraded herself before us. Brother Luke now gasped, a small sweat breaking out on his brow. She touched herself, laying on her back in the dirt, promising us all sorts of such dark delights if we would only come to her and touch her. Even after what I had seen the night before, somehow I still wanted to go to her. The next thing I knew, I was at the door, old Timothy screaming for help as he wrestled me back from the door, and the sound of gunshots, scream of pain and cheated rage. Timothy came back as the brothers pinned me down. I said I looked sickly and ill. The smoking barrel of a gun was still by his side, and he said how he shot her, hit her in the shoulder, and she ran off into the forest. We prayed that she wouldn't be back, but the next night she returned. I ordered all the windows closed, the doors locked. No watch was kept. We spent the night in prayer and song, trying to drown out the sound of her pleading cries and wanton promises. And now you are here, and the night draws on. And I'm afraid, Johnny Masterson, I am so terribly afraid she will return. Johnny was silent for a moment as he soaked in all that he had been told. From which direction did the woman come? From the west, Brother Luke replied. Is there anything in that direction you know of? Johnny asked. Yes, there used to be a small village known as Agnello di Dio, somewhere around that area, perhaps a mile or so away. Agnello di Dio, Johnny mused. The Lamb of God. Just so, Brother Luke nodded his reply. Whether it's still standing after all this time, I do not know. We brothers never leave the safety of the road. I mean, what sane man would? Yeah, Johnny smiled. What sane man would? Later that night, Johnny sat by a rough-cut window, a single candle burning beside him. He had instructed the brothers to go to bed and to wad cotton into their ears. Father Luke had started to protest at the thought of leaving Johnny alone, but Johnny would brook no argument and sent the concerned monk to his bed. Now he sat alone, deep in prayer, waiting for the creature to return. He did not have to wait long. 1 minute the forest was empty, the next she was there, standing by the side of the road. At the sight of her, Johnny felt a pang of lust, but squashed it immediately. He had been tempted by far greater creatures than whatever petty evil this creature represented. Standing, he stripped his weapons from his body. If he was right, they would do no good against this kind of creature, all except the sword across his back. But he did not intend to get that close to the thing, especially at night. Pulling the bolt from the door, he withdrew a small rosemary from his shirt pocket and hid it into the palm of his hand, wrapping the prayer beads about his fist before stepping outside into the balmy night air. At the sight of him, the creature smiled and ran its hands down over its lush body, running its tongue across its red bow-shaped mouth. Come to me, she said, reaching out towards him with slender white arms. Come to me, love me, let me kiss you all over. Love? Johnny laughed. What the fuck does your kind know of love? The creature hissed like a scolded cat before smiling once again. Come to me, mortal. I shall show you wonders the like of which you have never known. I will make you feel like you have never felt. 1,000 ecstasies your body shall know before you die. Tempting offer, but you can shove it up your ass, Johnny replied, unwinding the cross from his fist, which immediately burst into blue flames. The creature hissed, blinded by the burning cross. It fled, wailing into the darkness. Johnny nodded his head knowingly and stepped back inside, confident the creature would not return that night. He climbed into his makeshift cot and was soon sound asleep. The next morning, Johnny woke early, grabbed a quick breakfast, avoiding the questions of the milling monks before strapping on his gear and taking Brother Luke off to one side. "I am leaving now," he told the startled brother. "I will track this creature and try to kill it. Succeed or fail, I won't be coming back this way anytime soon. If the creature returns, you'll know I failed." "What is it?" the monk asked, wringing his hands together. "What happened last night? We all heard that terrible scream. We had hoped you had destroyed the creature." "No," Johnny said, adjusting his gear. "I managed to drive it away. As for what it is, that's easy. It's a vampire, or near as damn it, a demon masquerading as one. All boils down to the same damn thing. Last night it fled west, perhaps to the village you mentioned, Agnello di Dio. I shall go there. I'll see what I can find, but I have other business at Ostia. Urgent business. I will do what I can. You understand?" "Yes," Brother Luke replied, grasping Johnny's hand. "And we thank you for it. Our prayers and all our blessings will go with you." "Well, for that, you have my thanks," Johnny said, heading towards the road. "Go with God, brother. Go with God." The village of Agnello di Dio was remarkably preserved. There was no sign of burning or fighting in this quiet corner of the world. Nature had once again taken a stranglehold free from the constraints of man's interference. Many of the houses had fallen into disrepair. Roofs had collapsed, windows had broken, and leaves had blown through open doorways where vines and moss crawled up peeling plaster walls. What few cars remained had long ago started to rust, the paint flaking, their tires flat and shredded. Tall grass grew between the stones of the cobblestone streets, dotted here and there with wild meadow flowers. And yet, Johnny noticed as he walked up the high street with its few abandoned shops and creaking signs, no birds sang in this place, nor was there any drone of insects or the sound of scurrying creatures in the long grass. Only the breeze and the baking sun, yet still Johnny felt cold. There was a sense of foreboding in this place, a sense of evil. Nothing you could physically see, feel, or touch, but a shroud that weighed heavy on your soul, dried out your mouth and made the skin on the back of your neck feel tight and uncomfortable. Johnny knew that an evil haunted this place, but was it the same evil that had haunted the monastery last night? That he did not know. He was determined to find out, though. Shouldering off his pack in an empty doorway, he drew a small vial of holy water from his shirt pocket and knelt facing the sun, his eyes tight shut and his head bowed. Whatever prayer he muttered was between him and his God, but when he stood, a small vial that had been clasped between his hands had now started ever so faintly to glow. Johnny smiled, made the sign of the cross before heading back into the street. At first he walked down the street, heading east towards a collection of small buildings, but the glow immediately began to fade. Slowly he turned around until the glow reappeared, burning more brightly this time as he faced north. Johnny hurried in that direction, passing through street after street until he came to a narrow dirt track hemmed with a small gaily painted wall of which unicorns and cartoon characters danced merrily through a bright enchanted forest. The sign on the school gate simply read Scuola del Villaggio, or Village School. As soon as Johnny stepped over the threshold, the vial of holy water in his hand began to burn so brightly it was like he was holding a miniature supernova in the palm of his hand, and Johnny knew he had found the right place. Wincing against the brightness, he closed his fist and placed a vial of holy water in his jeans pocket. Even through the heavy material, he could still see a faint glow, feel its burning warmth against his leg. Looking around, he quickly hurried up the path until he came to a small, squat building with peeling white walls and a red tiled roof. A set of swings and a rusty-looking slide made up a playground of sorts surrounded by an overgrown lawn and fruit trees. It was to one of these trees Johnny hurried over and, drawing a large hunting knife from a sheath at his side, began to hack and saw at the thick, stunted branch. When he had finished, he had a blunt stake about 15 inches long, which he quickly sharpened into a razor-sharp point before heading up towards the school. He tried the front door, which he expected to be locked, but wasn't. It gave way grudgingly with a protesting shriek. He saw the body just as a smell hit him. It was a smell of blood and decay. A smell Johnny knew well, but never got used to. With a curse, he stuck the stake in his belt and covered his mouth and nose with his hand before approaching the bloody, mangled mess on the floor. The man had clearly been a monk. Johnny could tell from the torn and shredded robe that lay all about the eviscerated corpse at his feet, and he wondered if this was Brother Glenn or perhaps Brother Thomas. He supposed, in the end, it didn't really matter. Either way, whoever the man was, he had died hard, disemboweled and neutered. His bloody bowels lay like bloated sausages by the side of his screaming face. A lower jaw had been wrenched away from, and it left a gaping, bloody maw. Even the eyes were missing. Johnny gave a small prayer that the man had been long dead before such atrocities had been committed. Stepping over the body, he made the sign of the cross and continued on, deeper into the school, knowing exactly what he was looking for and finding it just off to his left in between two abandoned classrooms. He saw a narrow door built into the wall. Johnny reached out, smiling, and just as he expected, found the door again to be locked. Stepping back, he raised a booted foot and kicked at the door. The door crumpled in its frame but held fast. Cursing, Johnny kicked it again and again until it tore from its hinges, hanging askew, but revealing a narrow passageway that led down into darkness. Johnny took the blazing vial out of his pocket and, wincing, held it out at arm's length, lighting the way as he descended. His skin was starting to crawl. Still, he descended until he turned a sharp corner at the bottom of the stairs, which opened up into a large storage room. The creature was there, laying out upon two long trestle tables, with no attempt at subterfuge whatsoever. Confident in her hiding place and her kind's dominance in this new world. Johnny made no attempt at stealth, knowing the creature was trapped until the sun set below the horizon. "Can you hear me?" he said, slapping the creature hard across the face. Immediately her crimson eyes flew open and stared at Johnny with cheated hate. "That's right, bitch. Remember me? We had a nice chat last night. I have come," he said while showing her the sharpened stake, "to show you some delights of my own." The creature's lips drew back to show teeth that would have shamed a wolf, yet still it could not move, only glare and hissed at him. As he straddled her prone form, he took hold of the sharpened stake in a two-handed death grip, raising it high above his head. "Requiem aeternam dona est Domine et lux perpetua lucietis," he intoned, before bringing the stake down in a whistling arc, puncturing through the flesh and bone into the black heart beneath. The creature let out a shriek of agony, its jaw opening impossibly wide, spilling blood down its face as its back arched, its hands scrabbling at Johnny's arms, but Johnny knocked the flailing hands away and jumped free. Yet the creature would not die. Cursing, Johnny jumped forward and shoved the glowing vial of holy water into the creature's bloody mouth, slamming her jaw shut, shattering the glass and releasing the holy water within. Suddenly, her entire thrashing head started to glow. Steam and smoke billowed from her mouth and her eyes boiled from her head. She let out a last ear-piercing shriek and at last lay still. Johnny did not hesitate, but drew the sword from across his back and took the creature's head in one fell swoop. Taking it by the hair, he carried it back through the school and tossed it outside into the glaring sunlight. Instantly, the skull started to steam and collapse in upon itself. Seconds later, it was no more than dust on the wind. Johnny spent the night in the abandoned village. He had dragged the poor, defiled monk's body from the school and buried it into a shallow grave before fashioning a crude cross from a couple of tired, dried branches and a tattered piece of rope. Exhausted, he stumbled into a nearby house, ate a cold ration pack of chicken stew, covered himself in a couple of moth-eaten blankets and fell into dreamless sleep. He awoke late the next morning to birdsong and sat for some time. Even a small smile managed to play across his rugged features as he listened. After a wash at the village pump, he repacked his gear and made his way back to the road before consulting his map. By his reckoning, he was just over 15 miles from Ostia Antica. The day was hot, and he would need to rest, but he reckoned he could make the settlement just before nightfall if he did not stop too often along the way. Shouldering his pack, he started walking back through the forest. He emerged about a mile along the road from the monastery and could just make it out in the distance. Silently, he wished the monks well, and then turned and was on his way. Johnny arrived at Ostia Antica with the setting sun. He had pushed himself hard, but the battle the day before had taken more out of him than he thought. You're getting old," he muttered to himself. As he crested the final hill, he got his first look into the valley below, where the old Roman settlement of Ostia Antica had once stood, before becoming home to mankind once again after nearly 2,000 years. The place now looks utterly deserted. No evening campfires burned. No people milled or moved about their business. The place was dead. Silent. And Johnny Masterson had a feeling that something here had gone terribly wrong. Slowly he started down the hill, the setting sun at his back. He had already unstrung his rifle, loaded a magazine and cocked the weapon, ready for any signs of trouble, but there was nothing. He continued on, completely unhindered towards the open gate. Suddenly something shot out of the shadows. It was a small black dog. It was screaming, an almost human scream as it shot past him, leaving a trail of blood behind it. Hot on its heels stumbled a little girl. She was dressed in filthy rags, her hair matted and the lower half of her face covered in blood. Johnny guessed her age to be around 4, maybe 5. He called out to her, but she took no notice, just turned and ran back inside the shadowy settlement. With a curse, Johnny slung his rifle, drew his sidearm and ran after her, but by the time he made it inside, she was already gone. He called out again, his voice defiling the silence, but there was nothing. Only the sighing of the wind, the sea breeze, and far in the distance, the cry of a gull circling overhead. Johnny's frustration was mounting now. He called out again and again, rushing down crumbling streets, throwing open the flaps of makeshift tents and kicking open rusty tin doors of leaning shacks, but still nothing. Ostia Antica was home to over 100 families of fishermen and sailors. Yet there was no one to be found. Johnny carried on walking past rearing columns and statues of broken gods. He even stuck his head into what had once been known as the Baths of Neptune, now used as a large storage house to salt and dry fish. But the storerooms were empty. Johnny carried on along, checking every storeroom. There were no stores anywhere to be found. Ostia almost single-handedly provided the refugees back at the Vatican with their daily ration of food. Without it, thousands would starve. Johnny had to go back and report this to His Holiness. Mother of God, they had to be told quickly to ration whatever little food they had left in the city. If the refugees found out about this, there would be chaos. People would kill one another over a crumb of bread. He had to get back, walk through the night to make this report. Quickly he turned just as a shadow detached itself from a nearby wall. Even in the fading light, he could see it was the same girl as before. "Come," she giggled. "We have something to show you." And just like that, she was gone. Johnny chased after her through the ruined streets. Somehow she always stayed one step ahead, a fleeting shadow drawing him onward until he rounded a corner and stopped. Dead. He was at the old Roman amphitheatre. Everywhere there were burning torches driving back the encroaching night. Johnny stumbled forward, his mouth working, but he could only manage a low groan as he took in the devastation around him. In the middle of the amphitheatre, where the old Roman stage would have been, there were thousands of bloody bones, all picked clean. Even the skulls had been cracked open, the contents scooped out and devoured. Up in the stone stands sat more bodies, massive, purple and engorged, their flesh tight and bulging through their torn clothes. Some were naked from the waist down, their huge bellies bloated and crawling with blue veins. As Johnny drew closer, he could smell them. A vile mixture of stale vomit and dry shit. Lording above all this sat a thin, skeletal man, dressed head to foot in a black and stained three-piece suit. At Johnny's approach, he dropped the child's leg he'd been eating and rose, spreading his arms in a gesture of welcome. Just then, a blur shot from the shadows and leapt on Johnny's back. Scrabbling like a spider, it lunged forward and clamped its teeth deep into the side of Johnny's neck. With a roar of pain, Johnny grabbed the creature and threw it to the floor. It was the filthy girl from the street who had led him here. She was crying now, begging for help, telling him she was hurt so bad, but Johnny knew it for the ruse it was, and with one fluid motion drew his sidearm. He shot the girl. Shot her right between the eyes. The creature at the top of the steps began to applaud wildly, laughing all the while. "Oh, Johnny," it sniggered, revealing bloody teeth. "They told me you were a cold one. But to gun down a child in cold blood, now that is impressive." "She was damned," Johnny growled. "Possessed." "Ah," the creature waved one talon-tipped finger. "Technically not true. She was bewitched by me, not possessed." "And who are you?" "Then again," Johnny said, taking aim, "I really don't give a fuck." The gun buckled in his hand as he fired round after round of blessed silver into the creature. A creature who simply stood there, a knowing smile on its face. When the gun clicked empty, he carried on as if nothing happened. "I am Gluttony. I have other names, of course, but as you know, Johnny, names have power. I know your real name, Johnny said, drawing the sword from across his back. It's Beelzebub. Again. The demon clapped. Not just a killer, but a scholar too. Johnny ignored that. What have you done here? How is it you come to stand on holy ground? The body of a saint is buried here. Was. It's surprising what you can get a small child to do for a few sweet treats, especially one who's never even tasted sugar before. I had that little waif, he said, pointing at the crumpled figure of the little girl by Johnny's feet. I had her gather up those old bones, throw them into the sea. It took a little time, but we got there in the end. Now here I am. As for what I did to these good folks, I made them hungry. So hungry, Johnny. So hungry that at first they ate all the food they gathered. Some ate till their bellies burst. When they'd eaten all the food, they ate all the stray cats and dogs. When they'd eaten all of them, they turned on each other. Oh, Johnny, it was such a spectacle, fitting it should end here in the amphitheater. The big finale, the death of the demon slayer, Johnny Masterson. I don't think so, Johnny said, raising his sword. The demon shook his head sadly. I'm afraid nothing can kill me, especially not some sword blessed by a man in a tall hat. Oh, this sword is different, Johnny smiled. The demon faltered before that smile, and then grew angry. Nice bluff, Masterson, but you're coming to hell with me. Suddenly the creature began to change. It grew taller, black bat-like wings exploding from its back, and its skin began to take on a strange and scaly look. Johnny had seen this metamorphosis before and knew if the creature took on its true and terrible form, he was finished. With a cry, he charged forward, holding the sword out before him like a lance, but the creature shot high into the air, looming above him, its bubbling laughter booming around the abandoned city. I'm going to crush you like the flea you are, Masterson. You're nothing but a tick on the devil's ass. Demon killer. Minor irritation I intend to scratch. You talk a lot, demon, Johnny spat into the dust. If you have some killing to do, best come on and do it then. The demon screeched in anger, throwing itself at him, but Johnny saw it coming just in time and managed to leap to the right. Still, the creature's great wings buffeted him, sending him crashing into a nearby wall. Johnny didn't bother to catch his breath, but ran through a nearby building and back out into the narrow streets. But a plan was forming in his head, and he ran with all his might, his heart pounding. He headed towards the nearby docks, the creature screaming overhead as it tracked him through the night. He was coming to a clearing now, the smell of sea salt perfuming the air. Praying, he dashed through the nearby docks, the demon, seeing its opportunity, swept down, closing in fast. Just before its hooked claws made contact, Johnny dropped on his back, thrusting the gleaming sword upwards, slicing the creature's stomach as it sailed past. The demon let out a bellow of pain, folding itself up as it crashed into the docks, tangling itself upon the netting and fishing lines and old rope. Johnny leapt to his feet and charged after it. It too scrambled to its feet, blood now pouring from a gaping stomach wound as it reverted back to its man-like form, trying its best to scramble away, a look of shock and disbelief on its face. But it was too late. Johnny was already there before it. With a cry of triumph, he thrust the sword forward with all of his might, skewering the demon through the chest. The creature let out a scream of pain and grasped Johnny's hands as its eyes wide with shock and terror. I cannot die, it gasped. Everything dies, Johnny said, twisting the sword. One sinner even said God himself was dead. We all atone in the end. I cannot die, the creature said, falling to its knees, Johnny's sword sliding from its body. Yeah, Johnny said, raising the sword. You already said that. With a mighty swing, he sent the creature's head sailing into the darkness. Yeah. Overhead, an indifferent moon sailed the night sky. The same moon that had seen Christ die on his cross, Lazarus raised from the dead, and Johnny Masterson kill a crowned prince of hell.